Hey everybody. Can't say Shabbat Shalom because been there, done that. I wanted to start off, we're going to take a lot of questions and possibly come up with a few answers, maybe. If not, I'll make some up on the spot. Tour guides have been known to do that. By the way, that's your one warning sign. In guiding, and I'm borrowing this, something I learned from Mike Clayton, for tour guides, there's what's called the P scale. When something probably happened, it's probable. When we speak of the pilgrimage staircase up to the Temple Mount from the city of David, was it probable that Yeshua was there? Absolutely, no doubt about it. Then there's the possible scale. Well, maybe this happened here, maybe it happened nearby, we don't know. And then there's what's called the preposterous scale. When your tour guide takes you to Bethel, and says, you know the story of Jacob sleeping on the rock? Yeah, that's the rock. I don't think so. Okay. In the last 5 weeks, literally 2 weeks before I left Israel, 5 weeks ago, several different updates have been announced in the field of archaeology in Israel. I was going to speak about 3 of them. Today there was a 4th. It just so happens. Let's go to number 1, the biggest one. The pilgrimage road, the path that people going to the temple, the second temple, walked from the city of David after immersing in a mikveh, in a ritual bath, up to the Temple Mount, to the temple. That is now open to the public. Back when I was in the tour guides course, we got to walk a small section of it. It was really kind of unpleasant. You know, I mean, it was narrow, it's low ceilings, sandbags, it was wet, it was muddy, but y'all have it all cleaned up for you. You'll just have to come to Israel, which is even more exciting than Brandon, Florida. I know. Not Tampa, St. Pete necessarily, but Brandon for sure. That's what, now again, I meet people like yourselves. It's my 19th trip here in the last 6 years, teaching groups just like this. And everybody that I meet who comes to Israel says, I want to walk where Yeshua walked. They usually mention the Via Dolorosa, which we'll talk about momentarily because I've got a story to tell you about that. No new discoveries there, but a story nonetheless. A story that will illustrate some certain points. I take them to the southern steps, which is in what's called the Davidson Center, an archaeological park, the southern steps. The actual broken steps of 2,000 years ago, not the redone ones since the 1970s. And I say, you want to see a spot where Yeshua walked? Right here. In the Western Wall tunnels, at the level of the Herodian street, the actual street of 2,000 years ago. Now, if you went to Jerusalem 2,000 years ago, you went to the temple. If you went to the temple, you were on that street. No doubt about it. That's one big thing. The second big thing, it appears that the city of Ziklag, mentioned around the story of King David, was uncovered. Now understand something. Every time something is uncovered or found, there are the naysayers. Now, I first want to say that these finds, I think, are really cool. It's really amazing. Not just as a tour guide, but as a Bible-believing individual. However, these finds are absolutely, totally irrelevant to our faith. Say what? As people of faith, we don't need a physical proof to believe something. It is very cool. Like people say, gee, why can't we find something from the Exodus, the children of Israel? And based on rabbinic sources, we're talking about 600,000 males of a certain age. We're talking about 2 million plus people. What do you expect to find in the desert after 3,000 years? Do you expect to find like a little sandal that says, Moshe was here, but now he's gone, but left the sandal to carry on? Think about it. I mean, well, what is it we're looking for? Forget that. The problem with Ziklag or any other place is you've got the biblical minimalists, those hyper-secular academics who find it very uncomfortable to admit that there was a King David. There was a King Solomon, Shlomo. It's very difficult for them because at the exact same time, you have idiots standing up saying, quote, Jesus was a Palestinian from Nazareth. You've got to laugh because it's so absurd. It's taking terminology, and people say to me, Hanoch, why don't people understand there never was a state called Palestine? There never was a country called Palestine. There never was an independent anything, okay? Well, I have to tell you something, though. I've spent time researching ancient maps, and I actually did find the oldest map that indicates Palestine as a country. It is located between Narnia and Middle Earth. You hadn't heard that one before? Leave it to me to bring light to the nations. No, I mean, the term Christian Palestinianism continues. I mean, and then, you've got Mo, Larry, and Curly in the Congress who are just like, we're living in a crazy world. But let's keep going archaeology-wise. Pastor Russell, could you kindly put the image up on the screen, please? Thank you. Okay. That is a reconstruction of what the flooring in the Second Temple was. How do we know that? The Temple Mount Sifting Project. 400 truckloads of priceless artifacts were carted off by the Islamic Waqf, the Muslim Religious Council, dumped in the Kidron Valley, and through the Temple Mount Sifting Project, taken out of the garbage and pieced together. Amazing. Amazing and gorgeous tiles. I will mispronounce this yet again. Opus sectile, something like that. You say Latin, pardon me, you say Latin, I say Hebrew, doesn't matter. That's the flooring, the real flooring. The latest find was announced today, and I actually know one of the guys involved in it. A buddy of mine, Professor James Tabor, University of North Carolina, Charlotte, Department of Religion, has been working for years on Mount Zion with Professor Shimon Gibson. And they found this earlier this summer, but they waited till today to announce it. Why? Because it has to do with the Crusader attack on Jerusalem on July the 15th, 1099. The trench going around the city that was described in Crusader writings but never found until now. 4 things in the last week. How cool is that? Excuse me, I said the last week, I meant the last month. I'm Israeli, I read right to left, I get confused very easily. So I apologize. Now let me tell you the story that has to do with the Via Dolorosa, because there are elements that couldn't necessarily, may not be considered anti-Semitic, but maybe just plain old stupid. And I'll give you an example. First of all, let me tell you, before I tell you about the Via Dolorosa, we're going to do like a guiding moment. I'll be back in Israel, standing right next to the Via Dolorosa, as you see it right here. It's right here. Clean your glasses, it's right here. But first, let me give you a quick overview of the history of Jerusalem. From the year 70. First of all, let's go back. Let's go back, way back. 63 before the Common Era, BC, what y'all like to call BC. The Romans conquered the land of Israel. Jewish independence ends 63 BC until 1948, Common Era. Okay? 2,000 years. 2011. 2011. Interesting. Okay. Back to point. The Romans destroy the temple in the year 70. The Jewish people are not exiled. It's a myth. Because 62 years later, a larger rebellion breaks out, the Bar Kokhba revolt, between the years 132 and 135. It's incredibly bloody. Jews from Judea and Jerusalem are exiled. Jewish community lives on in the north of Israel and in the south. How do we know in the north of Israel? If you've ever been to Kfar Nahum, what you guys like to call Capernaum, that's built hundreds of years later. It's still a Jewish community. Okay. Muslims take over when? In 638. Islam is only created in 622. 638, they defeat the Byzantine Christians. Those were the Romans who morphed. Remember in 324? Constantine accepts Christianity for the Roman Empire. Whether he himself became a Christian, we don't know. His mother goes to Israel, Helena. We're going to talk about her in a moment. Okay. Muslims are running Israel. The Crusaders come in 1099. They switch places back and forth, back and forth. 1260, Crusaders are defeated. The Mamluks take over, a Muslim group. They rule until 1517. The Ottoman Turks take over. They rule for exactly 400 years. 1917, the British come in. God save the Queen. The British Mandate, where the British Army, it's called the British Mandate. That's when the British Army occupies our country. I said that in the presence of two generals from the British Army that were visiting Israel. My Israeli colleagues got a little uncomfortable. By the way, have I ever taught you how to say politically correct in Hebrew? No? Repeat after me. Politically correct. We have to borrow your term. We don't even have one. So when one of the British officers said to me, how can you refer to the mandate as the British Army occupying your country? And I said, when Jews fleeing the Holocaust were barred from the shores of the land of Israel by your army, that's an occupation. He said, you're right. In your face. So we've got the basic history. There is no Jewish independent control of the land of Israel from 63 BC until 1948. This is no interpretation. This is all clear. So I'm guiding a group from another country, although English is their native language. And we go to the Via Dolorosa. And I'll explain very quickly. The Via Dolorosa, according to late Byzantine Christian tradition, is where Yeshua was taken, all the 14 stations of the cross, until his crucifixion, death, prepare for burial, burial in the cave, which is within the structure today of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. That is late Byzantine tradition. Each of those 14 stops has a different church, run by a different denomination. Now, there are those, some of you may be saying, wait a second, I heard someone say that Yeshua rather was crucified on Har HaZeitim, the Mount of Olives. If he was crucified on the Mount of Olives, he could never have walked the Via Dolorosa. But let's assume for the sake, and again, I give it, I don't color it, late Byzantine tradition. Where did that come from? And I'm explaining that Constantine's mama, Helena, goes to the land of Israel. She goes around with a large purse of money, and she asks people, where did this event occur? Where did Yeshua stumble? Where was Simon given the cross to carry? And whenever someone said, right over here, they built a church. That's the tradition. It comes from the Byzantine period. We're talking about the 4th century. Okay. Afterwards, this woman comes over to me and said, listen, I got to ask you, that's not what I heard. What's not what you heard? Well, what you said isn't what I heard. Who's on first? She said, this guy told me, he's a Jew, which I guess is the way of, making it legit for me. He's a Jew. Okay. He must know. All 14 million Jews in the world know. Bo knows. What do they know? I don't know. She said, I heard from him that the whole Via Dolorosa thing was something that you Jews created. Because you felt bad, there wasn't a tourist site for Christians in Israel. That was like the time that people told me that the largest stones of the Western Wall were moved by highly trained dinosaurs. You talking to me? I mean, what? She said, yeah, that to give the Christian, first of all, like there are no Christian sites in Israel. To give the Christians something to, so I said, and I realized she was serious. And this is a woman in her 40s, which means she's a kid. I have a whole different way of understanding chronology now, by the way. 55, post-adolescent. It's really very simple. I'll be happy to school you guys on this stuff. It's very simple. I think I mentioned on Shabbat, my daughters asked me, said, so Abba, how was your birthday? I said, no big deal. It was, everyone was very nice. Hadassah made a cake for me. It was wonderful. Yeah, but it's another year. What are you talking about? I said, this isn't the first time I've been 39. You get used to it after a while. It's really, and you hear that sigh on the phone. It's very hard these days to bring up your parents properly. We were just talking about that earlier. Yeah, it's very hard. So I said to her, I said, I need to understand why you would even consider this. You're talking about, we haven't been in control here since 1948. And the area of the Via Dolorosa in the Old City since 1967. How did we go back to the year 500? But she never considered that. People take things. You scoff when I say, well, people say that Jesus was the first Palestinian. People take it seriously. They stop on American college campuses and they ask history majors to find Washington, D.C. on a map. They can't. They should speak to me. I've gone to places like Goshen, Mississippi, Palatka, Florida, all the places. People say, Palatka? Yeah, that's in Florida. You don't want to go to Palatka. Been there, done that. It's very hard to know what to try to expose people to when their level of ignorance and willingness to believe the most outrageous things is like all over the place. We live in the world of the big lie. Now, people always say to me, so what are you about, Hanoch? And as you know, I'm all about mutual respect for the reconciliation and restoration of all of Israel. But I'm defining it a little easier for people now. Like you, I'm in the kingdom building process. I'm in the kingdom building business. Now, every once in a while, there's someone that will say, well, you know what? But you believe differently. We are focused on theology when we need to be focused rather on behavior. We're unwilling to accept that the one commandment that we've received from Avinu Shebashamayim, our Father in heaven, that no one can doubt, is that we have to love each other. He never, ever even hinted that we need to agree with each other. But we forget that. The kingdom is the center. It's the pie. The fact that you may be approaching it from the northwest and I'm coming from the southeast is totally irrelevant. What advantage would there be to go around this circle, come all the way over here, yank me all the way back here just to get to the same spot I was heading in? Duh. But we do that. I have gone and given out thousands of my business cards, and I don't get normal questions from people, typically. They will send me, like, I hear the temple is being built right now. They're like on the second story of it. Like, where did you hear this? Well, someone at Oneg mentioned it. Don't you think it would be on the news? Oh, don't you know the news is all false news here? This is like a few years ago when I was traveling, and people said, where are you going next, Hanoch? And I said, I'm going to Texas, the Republic of Texas. So you don't want to go to Texas. So why not? Because it's hot in the summer? No, there's something called Operation Jade Helm. So what's that? The federal government is going to declare martial law, and they're going to come and take away our guns. You don't want to go to Texas. By the way, that was about 4 years ago. You may have missed it. Evidently, no one declared martial law in the same way that Obama didn't cancel the elections. President Trump, thankfully, was not assassinated when he was sworn. I mean, this is like everyone's got to... So where are you going next? This, wow, that's really nervous-making. Well, I'm going to the Pacific Northwest, America's West Bank. So, well, you don't want to go there. Why not? You didn't hear? There's going to be an underground earthquake. It's going to create a tsunami. Essentially, it's going to wipe away most of Northern California, all of Oregon and Washington. You don't want to go. Darn, I'm packing up now. Well, what's your next stop? You know, forget it. I'll just go back to and see my daughter in New York. Oh, no, you don't want to go to New York. Why? Okay, there's a meteor coming. It's going to be hitting in the Atlantic. It's going to create a tsunami. The same no, Hanoch. Listen to me. Read my lips. Different tsunami. Sweep away the entire Northeast, all the way into Ohio, stopping only at the property line of Eddie Chumney. Right there. Forget it. I'm going back to Israel. No, in Israel, you got the blood-red moons. You know what? We're told in the Torah that it's the pagans who look for signs in the sky. That's not Hanoch. That's the big guy. But we're so easily distracted. I meet people all the time say, you know, I would like to go to Israel. I can't afford it. There are people who can't afford it, period. I totally understand that. People living on fixed incomes, small fixed incomes. I know people who've sold the jewelry that they had inherited from parents and grandparents to be able to afford to go. But for most of us, I said on Shabbat, you need to stop tithing to Walmart. Not just Walmart, though. Costco. Do you realize most people walk out with more groceries and items in one cart than we have in supermarkets in all of Israel. It's amazing. And size are gigundos. It's like Texas size. I said this, and thankfully, it was recorded and put up as a meme on Facebook. Thank you, Elaine. If Israel isn't at the center of your congregation and your personal belief, then you will fail. Because the term klala, a curse, I will bless those that bless you, I will curse those that curse. We think of cursing as like, cursing. No. Cursing is also when you know what's best, you know what's right, and you diss Israel. You ignore it. You let it slide. I can't tell you how many people I know personally, just like, they don't post about Israel anymore on Facebook. They've gone back to, and I said it on Shabbat. The thing that will drive the blood pressure of everyone in this movement is if they hear of someone who knows someone who used to know someone who's on Facebook who they think is considering conversion to Judaism. God forbid. In how many years have I been in this movement? 24 and a half years. I know of, not know personally, but I know of 10 to 12 people that have converted to Judaism. There are probably more, but not a lot more. Insignificant number. The larger number are those who leave and simply go back to the mainstream church. They go back because it's more comfortable, because people love them. People don't ask them. People don't say, how come your daughter's not wearing a bonnet like Laura Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie? I love when people from this movement are in Israel with me and we're approaching the Western Wall and they say, well, I don't have a head covering. And I said, yes, so? Well, don't. That's one of your things, not ours. We of the Church of Latter-day Pharisees, don't blame us for everything. The largest group, though, are people who go back to nothingness. Because they've already, I was just discussing this with Ryan just before on the podcast. He brought up an excellent point. They have so turned their back on the church and everything that they had experienced, they couldn't possibly go back to the church. So there's no church, there's no Hebrew roots movement. And they just disappear into society. They're the ones that wear pajamas and go to Walmart, and you see the videos of them. They're not a happy group of people. People, I've told you before, we didn't have Walmart in New York City. It wasn't until I came for my building bridges with my brothers and sisters that I got to go to Walmart. Lucky me. Winchester, Kentucky, Walmart. Clanton, Alabama. No, there wasn't one in Clanton. Fairhope, Alabama. You name it. Wherever I went, I did a tour of Walmarts. I heard they're not a great place to work, but you've got to experience prices in Israel to appreciate Walmart, let alone Costco. Lord have mercy. I promised to leave time for questions, so why don't we do that, and we'll see what topics we wind up in. Here comes Ryan with a big hook to pull me off stage. Uh-oh, we have a hand up over there.
I do want to tell you, there is a word for the people that wear pajamas to Walmart. They're called Walmartians.
Y'all have a language of your own. Yes?
Okay. I know we have the zeal of Pinchas, and we have the spirit of Joshua. But isn't it true that we have to get wisdom and understanding from you people?
Pastor Russell, if you'd like to tell me I'm out of time now, that would be fine. Rarely am I ever speechless. This is about as close as I come. Let me just say in general, that we all need wisdom and study. There are a lot of places to get it. One of the things that's always quite fascinated me in my travels around this movement is people will spend hours doing a midrash on what a particular verse means. Do you remember when I was here just a few months ago, I did that whole thing, that 8-step, why is a fire truck red? And it's like, it's going like off, Queen Elizabeth was a ruler, and a ruler is 12 inches and inches. That's basically, and what amazes me is very few people, even out of idle curiosity, will say, what it is that those crazy Jews think that verse means. We've been playing with this for 3,000 years. Just a thought. Just a thought, just putting it out there. Lived and learned from fools and from sages. Aerosmith, dream on. Okay, next question. Oh, Kathy, were you waving to me? Kathy, it was so nice to have Kathy in Israel. She was so sweet. It's so nice to have everyone in Israel.
I'm going to ask you the obvious question. We were told that it was disrespectful for us to go to the wall without covering our heads. So I don't know where it came from, but what is the real opinion on that?
Okay. Yeah, they'll give you a little doily thing, and they'll give you a scarf if you're kind of like, Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman, and, kind of like. By the way, I love people say, Hanoch, do you know her? Of course I do. I know every beautiful Israeli actress. Talking about. I think I'm so busy guiding. Why, you think it's coincidence I only come to America once this year? Within the Orthodox Jewish community, it is customary for women to have their heads covered at least during prayer. Within the ultra-Orthodox community, that's your head is covered all the time, either by a wig or a hat or a mipachat, not a rag, a scarf. Thank you. But no, it's not we don't require people to cover their heads, whether they're married, not married. I apologize, though, to all Americans. We only have a men's and a women's section. We don't self-identify. I'm sorry. Okay. Next question. Bum, 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 bum. We're coming into Final Jeopardy. Oh, Chuck. Bum, 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 ba-da-dum.
I'm going to give you one.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know if you can answer this, but I'm going to give it a try.
I'll make up an answer.
And I really don't even know how to ask it. But let's put it this way. As you know, my wife's from India. And India has been around a long time.
Yes.
And I don't even know how it relates to the Bible. I know that, when you read the story of Esther, it's there. They mention India. But anyway, my point that I'm trying to make is
Iraq.
They also mention India. Well, anyway, it's somewhere in the Bible.
Shushan was, yeah, okay.
Anyway,
that's all right.
Anyway, my point that I'm trying to make is that I noticed that a lot of times Indian weddings and a lot of things that happen in India, the Hindu have like the huppah, just like the Jews do. And, I don't know if the Jews are taking it from India or vice versa, the other way around. I was just trying to get an idea if you know anything where that basically came from.
Where the custom of a chuppah came from?
Well, the huppah for the weddings.
No, I know what a chuppah is. I off the top of my head, I don't know where it came from. I know we did not borrow from our neighbors, let alone from India. Travel from Israel to India in the ancient world was a big deal.
Right.
So I don't know of any instances that would show any, cross-cultural fertilization between us and the Indian people.
Okay.
This is a fertile area for questions. Because you're sitting near Pastor Tikva, that's why. I know.
What do you hope for the election in September?
Who am I going to vote for? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, what's your hope?
What's my hope?
For Israel?
That we'll have a degree of sanity and we'll be able to form a government. Because that's the thing. Remember, it's a parliamentary democracy. You're voting for parties who then form a coalition, which is basically, horse trading. And it's very problematic. And politics in Israel, like in most countries, is a full contact sport. It's not a joke. And we don't have that many leaders. Like everyone, it's no secret that I'm not a supporter of Prime Minister Netanyahu. Netanyahu is a centrist. He has no policies. We have no security in the south of Israel. Our fields have been scorched by the terrorists from Hamas. There's no Israeli response. They found more terror tunnels. We're paralyzed. And that's the fault of the prime minister, who has not advanced any agenda. Now, he's been prime minister for a very long time. Actually, the longest serving prime minister in Israeli history, Prime Minister Netanyahu. He is not it was not a right-wing government. They are not building new homes in Judea and Samaria. Please don't think that they are. They're not. And everyone says, well, who else would you rather have as prime minister? None of the other candidates from the other parties, but within the Likud party, there are people like Gideon Sa'ar and Yuli Edelstein who would make great prime ministers, but Netanyahu is keeping them all down. There's not that much democracy in the Likud party. Not at all. So I'm hoping that we'll have a government that will at least provide some direction. That's my hope and prayer. We love our democracy so much, we decided to have a second election this year. It's only going to cost about 500 million shekels. And we vote with paper ballots. It's very quaint. Yeah, you put it in a little box behind the screen. It's so cute. Really. We have another question. Hi.
Hi. Okay, so the first time I ever heard anything about Israel other than the Bible, where it tells us to pray for Israel, is a book that I read, and the book suggests, pretty much teaches that everything that happens in Israel, it affects all of the nations. And I just wanted to know, do you believe that? And do you have any further, anything to teach, an example or anything else that you could tell us about that? Because we don't talk about that a lot,
Okay.
And I'm always wanting to
It's
hear about it.
so funny that you mentioned that, because I just saw something today that reminded me that during the previous American administration, they were holding up a particular very large amount of aid to Israel, to pressure Israel. And shortly after that was Hurricane Katrina. Now, I'm not one of those people who does A equals B. And there, Hashem, God has never said to us that his vengeance or his justice will be instantaneous. He's never said that. There's no expectation that if someone in the world does something bad, that they're going to be punished for it immediately. But I do think there's a strong correlation simply because of the biblical admonition that those who bless Israel will be blessed, those who curse Israel will be cursed. It's very clear. So yes, I do believe that. Absolutely. Of course, we do know that vengeance is of the Lord, but I just would like him to let us play with some of his toys from time to time. My idol, Frank Castle, the Punisher. I don't know. That's like a bridge too far. It's like everyone was so excited that America, after 69 and a half years, finally agreed with us that Jerusalem is our capital. The average person, though, in America described it as America named Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. We appreciate it. It is, however, very much smoke and mirrors in that no offices of the embassy, as of yet, have moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Pastor Tikva and I and our group, we went to the American embassy. Shockingly, security, the guys were like in a really good mood. Sure, you just can't take a picture of that and that, but sure, take a picture of the corners. It was great. It's symbolic. And we appreciate it. We absolutely do. However, President Trump is a businessman. If the Arabs were smart, they would accept the peace plan, the deal of the century, because it would really put the screws to us. Because we're now over a barrel thanks to the support of President Trump. Now, when President Trump, as he did today, goes and criticizes Mo, Larry, and Curly in the Congress and tells them they should apologize publicly to Israel, in any future, God forbid, Democratic administration, that's not going to play well in Peoria or Jerusalem or Modi'in. Okay.
So just want to put in a resource for folks that want to find out information about what you're mentioning. There is a website called watch.org. And basically, I think Dan Koenig, David Koenig, Walter Koenig, his last name's Koenig, William Koenig, there you go. And they've essentially taken all of the events of the last century where folks have done something to either split the land of Israel or do something against the land of Israel, and then equate it with some sort of $1 billion or more disaster that affects the nation or the region or the area or whatever. So watch.org, it's a really easy website to remember, and they've pretty much
Thank you.
chronologed all of that kind of stuff. So.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Go
yeah.
ahead. Make my day.
Oh, yeah. This is all going to be worth the while. Are you ready? Hanoch's ready. You know, I want to share with all of you a question that I've had for some time and that I'm searching out and seeking. We know that Peter says that prophecy is of no private interpretation. I've made quite a few statements along the lines of, I don't believe the whole house of Israel is made up of nothing but Jews. I believe that there's non-Jews in the house of Israel. So my question to you is, as I read, even in reference to the prophet Micha, it says, and I want to get your opinion on this, because here's the thing, as we weigh out the scriptures, we say, oh, look at all the Jewish people going back to the land. Well, what's happening to all of us that are from the nations, that have Torah written in our minds and our hearts, that are identifying as Ephraim? And here we have like a verse in Micah 5:7, and the remnant of Jacob shall be in the midst of many people, as the dew from the Lord, as the showers upon the grass, that tarrieth not for man, nor waiteth for the sons of men. And the remnant of Jacob shall be among the Gentiles, in the midst of many people, as a lion among the beasts of the forest, as a young lion among the flocks of sheep, who if he go through, both treadeth down, and teareth in pieces, and none can deliver. Thine hand shall be lifted up upon thine adversaries, and all thine enemies shall be cut off. So that's like where we're at. We're scattered, right? So check out Hosea. It says right here, then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together, and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel. So Jezreel was the legitimate son between Hosea and Gomer. So my question to you is, in just a few references that I've given you, are we on the verge of something incredible happening among the nations, like people like us and Beit Tehila, where we are identifying ourselves as part of the Commonwealth of Israel, that we are grafted in, that we are Ephraim, we are the nations coming alongside Judah? Isn't that a force to be reckoned with if you actually measure it out? I mean, because I know that if making this statement, I would be accused of replacement theology. Oh, look, now Nick says he's going to replace the Jews because he's putting himself in these verses. But I'm not Jewish, but I'm grafted in, kind of like a Ruth. But so what I'm saying to you is, how do we manage that at this point in time?
Okay.
Because it's like, I don't want to, and that's what we've been accused of, is replacement theology, but it's not replacement theology.
Absolutely not.
Because Ephraim means ethnic groups, different nations, people groupings.
Okay. The idea that Ephraim is out in the nations was proven conclusively when the era of exploration, approximately the 17th century, where most of the world had been explored and there was no kingdom of Ephraim hiding somewhere, behind the Caucasus Mountains or, in the outback in Australia or anywhere else. So y'all had to be in the nations. Now, there's no one on earth that would have possibly thought of looking for you within the church pews of what became the United States of America. And I mention America specifically because Ephraim, across the world, is all ethnic, racial, religious groups. Not all from Christianity. The Ephraimites in Sri Lanka come from backgrounds as Hindus, Buddhists, and Muslims, not as Christians. So, having said that, we are on the verge of the great day of reconciliation. Now, the verge, I would love to tell you, is X period of time. I can't. No one can. But we are at a place in the last 30 years only, people have been woken up around the world with the idea, and I'm going to state the terms very carefully, that they too are part of Israel. Now, I don't understand what part of being part of Israel, along with our Jewish brothers and sisters, do certain pastors not get and accuse this movement of replacement theology. They are wrong. Batya Wooten, again I quote Batya, who said that when people would stand up at a conference and yell out, "We are Israel," she said we should have been sensitive enough to realize that we should have said, "We are part of Israel." Would I be my likelihood of being with people, of spending money I don't have to travel around, to spend time giving up work in Israel, to be with people who believed in replacement theology, would be as likely as me joining the KKK. I mean, really. There's not a presentation that I give when I don't stress that Ephraim in the nations is every ethnic, racial, or religious grouping. That it's not a bunch of white people who came, from Northern Europe. That's racism. And it's not scriptural. When God says that he will scatter his people to the four corners of the earth and return them, we think he's going to bleach them? How stupid can you possibly be? Tell us how you really feel, Hanoch. It makes me insane. You want to know what Ephraim's going to look like? Walk down the streets of Jerusalem. Look what your Jewish brothers look like. I mean, we have 140,000 Jews from Ethiopia in Israel. 140,000. The first time in the history of the world that Africans have been taken off the continent of Africa and brought to another country, not as slaves, but as brothers and sisters. Have we done it perfectly? No. Have mistakes been made? Yes. Are we going to correct them? We darn well have to. Period, end. We've got Asian Jews. We've got Jews of we've got the whole mixed melting pot. That's exactly what Ephraim is going to be like. Because this is not a racial thing. This is not like, well, you don't look like me. You don't have to have brown eyes or blue eyes or a lot of hair. Got a haircut today. And I said to the young woman that was cutting my hair that, I'm a bit follically challenged these days. She looked at me and said, oh. See, yeah, that's the politically correct term for losing your hair. She's like, oh. And I could tell she's looking at me like, this guy is from an endangered species. Get him out of here. Other questions? Up.
Picture yourself with great-grandchildren
Wow.
who have grown up here in America, and you're going to take them to Israel. What sites would you want to make sure they got to see as the most important sites for you to show your great-grandchildren?
Okay. It wouldn't be sites as much as experiences. Experiences including people. I can take you to see various communities in Judea and Samaria, but I would rather take you to a community like Itamar and introduce you to my friends Moshe and Leah Goldsmith. Or to go to Nati Rome's house. Now, it's great that Nati is coming here in 2 days. It's better to go to his house. You get to see his wife and all his kids. They're wonderful. Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, our eternal capital. But I want people up in Gamla, in the Golan Heights. I want people in the desert. I want people all over. Basically, and for those of you who haven't yet been to Israel, understand something. Your first trip in Israel, no matter how long, you will not be able to see everything. I want you to think of it as if you were given a coloring book. You're a kid. Coloring book and a pack of the brand new Crayola crayons. You get to begin coloring within the lines of the pictures you like the most. Each subsequent trip, you get to fill out the pictures a little more. You need to reconnect to your land. I've told you before, I became a tour guide because no one else has been prepared to show Ephraim their homeland again. You could go on a go see the holy sites type tour and not have an experience in Israel. You can go on tours to Israel and not meet a single Jewish Israeli. So when people say, so what do the Jews in Israel think about? I don't know, I didn't meet any. They didn't meet any? So it's really important. It's important for you to connect to the land. If you don't connect to the land, you cannot connect to the Torah of Israel. It's as simple as that. You cannot tell me that you love the Jewish people. I'm repeating myself, I know. It's a factor of age. 39, again. And again, and again, and again. You can't claim to love the Jewish people as a people and have nothing but disgust and disdain for each individual Jew that you've ever met, or the Judaism that guides our life. You don't have to agree. I don't care that you agree. Who cares? That's the thing that's amazing. That's the one thing I could point to in the Jewish community, in the Jewish world, that y'all need to follow. The one thing. It's not our interpretation. It's not the way we speak Hebrew. It's the fact that we can argue and disagree, and then life goes on. And then some kind people bring you Krispy Kreme donuts. I tried saying, I only eat them on Hanukkah. But I have to tell the truth when I'm up here. Pastor Nick said, you always have to tell the truth. Other questions?
Sorry, me. I have a question, and I feel like I ask it often.
Hi,
but
sweetie. How are you?
Good. Want to be back in Israel, but you know. So in regards to, I kind of want to go back to the political scope, I guess.
Sure.
In terms of the younger people, like 20s, 30s, I know over here, obviously, there's kind of more of a leaning towards like separation of like religion and state or whatever. In Israel, what is the sentiment amongst the younger people? Like, how are they leaning?
Okay. Sadly, for many people in Israel, for some people in Israel, religion is strictly politics. And that's terrible, it's disgusting. And it's like the business of religion as opposed to actually touching souls. That's really a troubling thing. However, when people go to Israel, because they don't see people, everyone, all the guys wearing kippot, or, wearing the tzitzit out or whatever it is, they make an assumption that Israel is largely secular. But the way we define secular in Israel is different than the way you define it here. Recent studies have shown that 80% of Israelis commemorate Shabbat in some manner or another. 85% light candles on Hanukkah and have a Passover Seder. That's pretty impressive. So younger people who are generally much more optimistic about life would like a situation, I think, where they don't feel that there's religious coercion, quote unquote. That's a much larger issue of whether there is, whether there isn't. But it's people want to find themselves. And in the ideal world, they can. Because no one has ever come to a religious understanding by being forced. If you don't perceive love and caring, chapter and verse in anything ain't going to matter at all. Paul, you're up next.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing? You mentioned it earlier about the Ethiopian Jews.
Yes.
I've been hearing a lot about them. There's a couple of people have various things to say about the sterilization of the Ethiopian Jews. You have Ethiopian Jews in Israel. After years of denying it, Israel finally admit to sterilizing the black Ethiopian Jews. And
can you quote me that source? Who in Israel admitted it? When did it happen? To how many people? How did they know?
Well, what I'm getting at, I don't even know. The source is, what's the source?
So there's one from, one says Haaretz.
Haaretz.
Right.
It's Tablet
Our
magazine.
left-wing paper.
Right. That's what I'm coming at, is that
Yeah.
various people have different opinions on it. And I know that you are in Israel and you're there.
Sure.
So I just want to find out from you.
Okay. What do I think is going on?
What's going on?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I do not believe, no. I am not aware of any factual evidence to indicate that any Ethiopian Jews were ever sterilized. Haaretz is an extreme left-wing paper. They make it seem like Prime Minister Netanyahu is a member of the Gestapo. We are out there, I'll give you an example of how bizarre the dialogue is, and then I'll get back to answering your question specifically about Ethiopian Jews. An Israeli soldier, after finishing his active duty, was traveling around the Pacific Northwest, educating people about Israel. And a woman in the audience stood up and said, "Do you know how many instances there have been of Israeli soldiers raping Palestinian women?" And he said, "I'm not aware of that ever happening a single time." She said, "Aha! That proves how racist you are, that you're so disgusted by them, you won't even rape them." I don't know words that could describe it. Now, if the question is Israel racist? The answer is absolutely not. Are there racists in Israel? I'm certain there are. 6,750,000 Jews? That's about 15,000 opinions, 15 million opinions. I mean, I imagine there are. Recently, an Ethiopian young man was killed in Israel. There was an altercation with an off-duty police officer. Ballistics show conclusively that the officer fired at the ground, the bullet ricocheted off the concrete, and unfortunately killed him. It's not like in America where young black men are routinely killed on highways simply for the crime of DWB, driving while black. We don't have that, thank God. But have there been individual instances of racism? I'm sure there have been. I think it was 4 years ago, our Miss Universe, Ethiopian woman. Ethiopian Jews have suffered the most difficult absorption into Israel because they came from a real third world culture. When airlifts were coming to Israel to prepare food, people, what they did was they pulled out the seats in the air to get as many people in as possible because the situation with the government in Ethiopia, the Marxist government, was very tenuous. They needed to get these guys out as quickly as they could. People began setting up fires because this was it. They really from it. So my hope and expectation is over the next generation, as people are fully Israeli, because the Ethiopian culture, the men have been sitting, the elders have been sitting at home, and the women have gone out and gotten jobs. Culturally, that's not a great thing for any group. So there have been difficulties. There's no official governmental racist thing, thank God, but I'm sure we could do a lot better. Hi, Casey.
That was an uncomfortable thing for me. I like positive things, so I'm going to ask a question about food.
About?
Food.
Food.
Yeah. So I'm going to be in Israel for 3 months. Is there any good places to eat that you...
Surely you jest. Name a city. Jerusalem?
Sure.
I can only think of about 15 places off the top of my head that I would recommend. What kind of food do you like?
I like new foods.
New foods?
New that I haven't tried. Like, that's
you
special
mean like,
to Israel.
Okay. Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, because we've got amazing places. We've got Mexican food. We've got kosher Korean food. We've got, there is nothing that you could think of. I'm sorry, we have the Mexican food fans situated over there.
That's the kosher
If you guys
Korean
could just
section.
if you
The
just
kosher
remain
Korean section's
seated
right over here.
and calm down. Arroz con pollo. Yeah, listen, everything's okay. Frijoles. Yeah. ¿Por qué no? Yeah, that's right. There's a Latino congregation in Austin, Texas that I've spoken at. And someone said, we heard that you were going to give this talk in 3 languages, English, Hebrew, and Spanish. So I said, that's absolutely true. And I said, welcome to everyone. Bruchim habaim, benvenido. Okay, now we can go on with the talk. I did all 3 languages. What's the big deal? So I promised them, because they're a group that's coming to Israel with me in December. Not this December, 2020. By the way, here's a brilliant idea. This congregation has decided now in June that they're coming in December 2020. And they told everyone in the congregation who's thinking of going that they need to be saving at least per person $56 a week. Don't wait, and this is a message to Beit Tehila, because our tour is going to be in May. You can't pay for it in May. You need to be saving now. So when Pastor Tikva sends the information, you want to be among the first on the list to sign up. You don't want to be left behind. Casey, I'm going to make sure you have my card, and we're going to be in touch. In those 3 months, are you going to be with Hayovel? Oh, you'll be eating good there. I'll hook you up with the right places, not to worry.
My husband and I had the awesome experience of going to Israel last year for Shavuot, and we were with Hayovel in Jerusalem. It was so cool. So I'm wondering what you have planned, or what's going to happen with Beit Tehila for Shavuot.
Well, it just so happens that Pastor Tikva and I have had several conversations about this. We've got all kinds of cool places to go to and experience, and we're already talking about, one thing I can mention is that pilgrimage road that I described. Yeah. And a number of other things. But if you could just hang on to that, over the next few weeks, all the information about the tour will be coming out. And if you have any other questions, either Pastor Tikva and I would be happy to answer. Okay? Uh-oh. Linda, are you waving or? Oh, Linda has a question.
She just really liked what you said. She was.
Thank you. Yeah, like the Queen.
Okay, so talking about the archaeological digs,
Yes.
have you personally gone on one, and do you ever take any of your tours on a dig?
Okay. To the first question, have I ever gone on an archaeological dig? Meaning, do I ever get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, do backbreaking labor for free? No. Those days are over. I'm trying to earn a living now. My eldest daughter went on that Mount Zion dig a number of years ago and had an amazing experience. I have taken people there. I have taken people also to the Temple Mount Sifting Project. All of these things are possibilities. They're all possibilities. Pastor Tikva. Sifting Project. Yeah, is on our list for the Shavuot tour. Yeah. First of all, that's a half a day, and you're basically sitting there sifting through things, which is really cool. It's not like in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, where you're on the on the chain gang, no. But if you like to do labor for free, I can hook you up with a lot of places in Israel. Not a problem. Up. Ryan is coming as quickly as he can. He's 39 also. Maybe the first iteration.
Minus a few years.
Peggy and I have taken Hebrew lessons from a woman from Israel for several years. We haven't done it in quite a while. But there's other ways to learn Hebrew. And we just would really like to learn. What do you suggest, like going to Israel and...
Okay. If you have the time and the finances to go to Israel and be involved in an ulpan, the intensive study of Hebrew, several hours a day, that's grueling. In the ideal world, you're involved with a group, even a virtual group via Skype, where you get to practice Hebrew. If you don't use it, you lose it. I studied Spanish for 3 years in high school. I got to Israel, age 16. I've graduated high school. I've studied Spanish for 3 years. And I meet the cutest girl from Mexico. She spoke Spanish and Hebrew. I didn't speak any Hebrew at the time. I spoke English, and I thought I could speak Spanish. After 2 minutes, when I ran out of every word that I knew and could only conjugate verbs for her, it was a very short conversation. So you need to find someone in the community or online that you can speak Hebrew to, even if it's rudimentary Hebrew. And what you can do is take little Post-it pads and put them on items in your kitchen and begin thinking of, I need some more chalav, milk, in my cafe, in my coffee. Would you like to go out with me for glida? Ice cream. You guys know the right words. It really, if you think about it, there's no such thing as, in Ulpan, we learned the term dov halavan. That's a polar bear. Like Bat Yam, mermaid. Polar bears are one of the few problems we don't have in Israel. No one is saying on Tel Aviv, the beaches are filled with polar bears. But you learn the word. So, but any terminology that you learn, toda, thank you. Bevakasha. You know, lihitra. By the way, we love to say lihitraot, which means see you soon. We don't like to say, I personally suffer from separation anxiety. When Beit Tehila went to the airport, that was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Knowing full well that I was coming back for Hanukkah. But I mean, what was I going to do for all those, months by myself? It's terrible. Y'all need to come and visit me more often. Boy, I'm going to take Casey to so many places. She's going to come back 35 kilos heavier. People aren't going to say, is that little Casey over there? They say, there's Casey. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. I love you. It's okay. Who are we pointing at? Up.
Are there any archeological digs in Jordan on the east side? And do you ever take anyone there?
I don't go to Jordan. It's on the wrong side of the border. If Indiana Jones was still in Petra, I would consider it. But no. Up. You're behind the camera. You can't ask anything. Where's your brother? Oh, he's not here tonight. There's no one to keep you under control.
I've got the microphone.
Okay. Yes, please.
Okay. I was talking with a man last night on the phone who said President Trump has a hill in the Golan Heights and he's going to build there. Have you heard that?
Okay. It's so interesting. A grain of truth? Okay.
Ramat Trump, right?
Ramat Trump. My government came up with this great idea. We're going to name a new town after President Trump. It's called Ramat Trump. Ramat means hill or heights. Right now, it ain't nothing. Trump himself is not building there. If it was up to me, he could send Ivanka. She's in need of a good tour guide. She can leave Jared at home. Just saying, I'll do anything to promote relations between our nations. Yes?
What do you
Shh. Behave yourself.
What do you think about the new airport in the Golan?
The new airport? Okay, we don't have a new airport in the Golan Heights. We have down in the desert near Eilat, Ramon Airport. It's not yet open to, let's say, flights from America, so it's not an option. Although, do you guys realize there are now direct El Al flights from Orlando? Okay. Now, I do know some people who've said to me, yeah, but it's not Tampa. Really? I mean, do you expect us to send a shuttle to pick you up and bring you to the airport too? Carolyn. Et tu, Carolyn. By the way, Carolyn is going to be stomping new grapes this year. No, she tells you she's picking. I know. I spoke to Tommy Waller. She's stomping. If you want the vintage for Kiddush that Carolyn has stomped, I will let you know. The next time I'm here, when I'm back, we're going to discuss this. It's okay. Ryan. Everyone's so quiet and well-behaved. I'm so outrageous. Sorry.
I have a kind of an interesting question. Is it possible that the Israeli people are going to start paying the holy half shekel soon?
Going to what? I'm sorry?
I lost my breath, sorry.
Okay.
Is it possible that the Israeli people are going to start paying the holy half shekel soon?
Well, that would require a religious government, and we're not there yet, not anywhere close. There are people who do, and I know that Ruvain Prager, I think, has been here in the past with those cute shirts, FBI, Friends of Beged Ivri, which I think is really cool. For those of you who think that we walk around Israel wearing those garments that he makes, we don't, but they're pretty cool. So no, we're not anywhere near there yet. Hadassah, did you have a question? No. Safta has a question. Hi, Pastor Tikva. I went all the way to Iowa to see Pastor Tikva.
Yes, he did.
This is so much more convenient.
Praise God. I'm so glad you're here. You're a
Thank you.
blessing, and we really appreciate you, and we appreciate you being our tour guide, and you're on the same page. You know, I had a lot of Israeli Jewish tour guides. I had to really convince them that we were Ephraim. It took a lot of work, but some of them got it and some didn't.
No.
So we don't have to do that with you. But, you know, what about the temple? You know, we hear so much about the rebuilding of the temple. Do you have any insight?
Sure.
What's going on there?
Okay.
Do we need a whole temple? Do we just need
Yeah.
the altar or whatever?
Okay. Well, once we have the altar, we can begin sacrifices. However, the altar can only be where the Even Hashtiyah, the foundation stone, is, and that happens to be covered currently by something called the Dome of the Rock. Now, don't be dismayed. This is one of those things that we have to let God be God about. I'm not saying Israel should go to war to take down... Okay. We have a major earthquake in Israel every 100 years because we sit on the Syrian-African rift that goes all the way through Africa, all the way up into Europe. I don't know. Now, more Jews are going up to the Temple Mount. Now, when a Jew goes to the Temple Mount, it's a big deal. You go on a special line, the police harass you, they check you for all kinds of things. If you look like you're praying, notice I didn't say praying. If you look like you're praying, let alone any of the, the hands, no. Throw your hands in the air if you're, no, nothing like that. Now, of course, what they don't realize is people often pretend that they're getting a message from Pastor Tikva, and of course they're pulling up, but you can't go up with a Bible. You can't go up with a shirt that has a slogan that could be deemed political. That shirt. Israel, one in his hand. Beit Tehila with all the tribes around. What are you guys thinking? You're acting like you're part of Israel. Nehemiah, boy, he sent, into the valley of death, rode the valley. And he's so nice about it. He comes with this nice smile, like, I'm sorry, you're about to be yanked off. Thank you. I love you too. Anyway, more Jews are ascending the Temple Mount. There is more education about the Temple Mount. And I can tell you, one of my closest friends here in the U.S., Joseph Good, Joe teaches about the temple incessantly. He's got a second volume coming out of Measure the Pattern, which is the finest resource in the English language on the structures of the temple. He has discipled over the years Rico Cortez and Dr. Dina Dye. The three of them do these Treasures of the Temple seminars. There's more going on than ever before. Now, there are some of us, Pastor Nick and I were talking about this, who'd like to go to one of the basement vaults of the Vatican. Let's see what we can find. It would be so nice for me to call up my friends in the Temple Institute. By the way, we don't have phones like that anymore. Call my friends in the Temple Institute, say, you guys could stop building that. We've got the original. We're not there yet. But so people ask me all the time, when are you Jews going to build the temple? The answer is when we want it bad enough. We're getting closer and closer. It takes time. It takes time to educate. Israel has only been around, modern state of Israel, 71 years. We're 3,000 years old, 71 years young. We've got a few distractions. 150,000 missiles from Hezbollah in Lebanon. Iran. Iran's doing, they got all those billions of dollars from, President Barack Hussein Obama. They're doing fine. Europe, they violated the agreements. What's Europe going to do? Nothing. So, but yeah, the temple will be rebuilt. Not soon enough, I admit it. But we'll work on it together.